carrying out God's work in the community around us. St. Hilda St. Patrick is a spiritual home built on caring relationships. We strive to engage our minds, hearts, and souls as we follow Jesus. You'll be hearing that a lot today and going forward. Valerie and Jerry even have a presentation for during our coffee hour brunch. I'll say it again. Carrying out God's work in the community around us, St. Hilda St. Patrick is a spiritual home built on caring relationships. We strive to engage our minds, hearts, and souls as we follow Jesus. A crowd is following Jesus in the passage we hear today. This passage is long numerically and unusual for miracle stories, in that it's actually two stories interwoven with one another. As Jesus is walking, Jairus comes to him. A synagogue leader comes to the itinerant rabbi because his daughter is about to die. Think about how desperate he must be. Not just concerned with his daughter, but willing to try anything. His contemporaries have already said that Jesus is casting out demons using Satan's power. Jesus goes with Jairus to heal his daughter, but he's interrupted. A woman who's had a hemorrhage for 12 years is as desperate as Jairus is. She's a woman. She's ritually impure, and she's been swindled with fake cures and empty promises, growing no better, but worse. Jairus steps outside the mainstream. Even with all his power, privilege, and authority, he's willing to try anything. This unnamed woman, who society never gave much power anyway, is also willing to try anything. If I can just touch his clothes, she says, I'll be healed. Even with plenty of people around him, a crowd, Jesus knows that a prayer has been offered and that it has been answered. Jesus' ministry, carrying out God's work in the community around him, isn't just deeds of power, though. Most translations, in saying, your faith has made you well, or your faith has healed you, just before Jesus says, go in peace and be healed of your disease. This reads too easily like Jesus saying, her faith has healed her disease, so go in peace and be healed of her disease. Really, Jesus is saying, though, your faith has saved you. Go in peace and be healed of your disease. This woman's faith hasn't just healed her bleeding, it's saved her life. She can be restored from ritual impurity for the first time in 12 years. Her life and community can be rebuilt. She doesn't have to worry about spending money on crooks and swindlers. Jesus isn't content for his work to just be deeds of power. Carrying out God's work in the community around him, Jesus puts the synagogue leader on hold and has a conversation with this woman. Rather than rebuke her, Jesus shows the care of his relationships with all us humans. He tells her that her faith has made her fully saved in mind, body, and spirit, and to go with the peace of God's reign, healed from this disease. By this point, though, someone has come from Jairus' house. It's too late. When Jairus is encouraged to leave Jesus alone, Jesus tells him, do not fear, only trust. A woman has come to Jesus and had faith that she'll be healed if she can only touch his clothes. A synagogue leader has come to Jesus hoping for his daughter to be healed, and she has died. Making the crowd leave him, but bringing his closest followers, Jesus has a powerful statement for those who laugh at him when he says the girl is only asleep. Mark and Jesus want us to know that this girl is dead. This is not a coma. This is not a nap. Yet in the presence of Jesus the Christ, death is merely being asleep. Having delayed to talk with the woman, Jairus' daughter dies, but death has no power over Jesus. He sends everyone out and tells her to get up, like calling a dead Lazarus out of his tomb. She gets up and starts walking around, carrying out God's work in the community around him. Jesus immediately moves into a caring relationship. He tells them to get her something to eat. The disciples are amazed, and Jesus tells them not to tell anyone about it. When he has said that before, he's included not to tell anyone about it until they've seen that death loses to Jesus, even when Jesus dies. The raising of a dead girl is pointing the way for what's coming, the raising of Jesus himself. Carrying out God's work in the community around us, St. Hilda, St. Patrick, is a spiritual home built on caring relationships. We strive to engage our minds, hearts, and souls as we follow Jesus. We're here today engaging our minds, hearts, and souls as we follow Jesus. We're opening our hearts to God's grace that we can't and don't earn. Jairus, his daughter, the woman with the bleed, didn't earn healing. They had faith that Jesus could save them bodily and otherwise, and he did. Following Jesus is a life of trusting that God is saving humanity and creation. As we live in our caring relationships, making a spiritual home, as we carry out God's work in the community around us, that takes the same trusting and having faith, even if we're not looking for bodily healing miracles. When the messenger from Jairus' house comes to tell him that it's too late, Jesus says, "Do not fear, only believe." Or, "Do not fear, only trust in me." That's my vision for you and me as I depart for my sabbatical, and in a few months a new program year starts in my absence. I see how we follow Jesus, and I hope you do too. I see how we carry out God's work in our community and live and build caring relationships. I won't be here, but you're not here for me. I can't heal you physically or tell you that your faith has saved you. But Jesus says, "Do not fear, only trust in me." Look to Jesus. Do not fear, only believe. Amen.